So here we are, everybody. Once again, I'm excited for this conversation, especially. For anybody that has followed me online at all, you know that I've been talking to a lot of people in the esports sports space for about a year, and one of the great things to do is when you start a story and you do an interview, you have to tell the next chapter because people grow and people evolve. And so I talked to Josh from the Game Gym about 7 or 8 months ago, and he was getting ready to launch. He quit his regular full-time job March 1st, and the Game Gym launched in May, and in 6 months they are doing awesome things. I really invite you to go to their site and check out the events that they have going on, and the daily events, the weekly events, and then also I have Josh with me, and he's going to talk about he's going to talk about a special event that they have going on locally. But Josh, welcome back. I appreciate you making time for me. I know that you're a very busy man. So for the people that didn't listen to the first interview and they're just now finding out about you, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, thank you first and foremost for giving me the opportunity to come back on. I remember last time when we chatted, I got off the phone so energized, and I really feed off of the love and good vibes that people put out into the world. So
nice.
I really appreciate it. But my name is Josh Hafkin. I am the founder and CEO of the Game Gym. We are an esports training center and competitive team. And our whole goal is to give kids who are either learning about video games or starting to play online with others, a really positive experience in this world. As we know, this world is not always positive, and I think one of the major issues that the kids face nowadays is that many of them don't have instructors or coaches or mentors, and the people that they look up to are Ninja and Dr. Disrespect and some of these other people, and they're great, they're entertaining, but they're not mentors. And maybe Ninja is in I guess some senses, but this isn't Bill from down the street who's a good friend of yours who you're able to talk to and see and hang out with in real life. So what we do is we teach the X's and O's of the game, but it's really important for us to provide mentors for our kids. The idea is essentially we are trying to teach video games as team sports, and with that structure of this is your coach, this is your practice time, and this is the event that we're working towards to go and compete and try to get better. So in a nutshell, our whole thing is very much like soccer, basketball, anything else. We're just doing it and using esports as that avenue.
I was thinking back to the first time that we chatted, and you're saying the same sorts of things, and you're wanting to use esports as use esports not just as an opportunity for kids to do something and stay out of trouble, but also to teach them how to interact with people, how to handle adversity. So I'm sure that your first couple weeks, maybe your first the first part of your journey, it was a struggle. You had to get people to buy in. You had to find your own style, what worked for your business model and things like that. So sort of talk about just a little bit about you launched in May, and now here you are 6 months later. You have an upgraded site, you have events and everything going on. So sort of talk about when you went from starting at zero and and then over 6 months, you have all this going on right now. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely ups and downs. We've had, I think part of the tough part about, startup culture is that, it's such extreme highs and such extreme lows. It's, one day it's we're getting calls from Logitech and Riot Games and Blizzard and we're feeling like we're on top of the world. And then the next day we're struggling and money is tight and trying to find, we're trying to add kids to our program and things like that. So, it really is a daily struggle. And I think it's one of the things that I love about it is that each day is a problem and a conundrum. And like the tough part, I think for me as a personally is that, I need to, when we get those highs, I need to stay in the middle. And when we get those lows, I need to stay in the middle. Right. And that's a very hard thing. And as a new boss and as a new CEO and all that, like I'm still learning how to do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think what's really helped is one is flexibility. What we've really kind of seen is that the esports training that we want to do. I want to help, kids get better at esports and maybe go to, collegiate or get better or whatever. Mm-hmm. That demographic is still relatively small in the, 10 to 18-year-old demographic in, Rockville, Maryland, where we are. But there's a lot of kids who want to go to camp. And so, what we're seeing and what we're doing is kind of pivoting in certain ways to make sure that we can continue, that the game gym still opens and we are able to evolve and grow. And so, what the camps allow us to do and birthdays and some of these other things is they allow us to sustain the esports training that is the real passion of what we're trying to do here. The camps are very, very important. And we give our kids a really cool, unique, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Each camp is different. We have different guests and things like that. I actually talked to you, Bill, about coming and talking to the kids.
Right.
But, it's really been an exercise in flexibility and pivoting. And I think that it's been a really incredible learning experience. And so, for the thing that I think has made us successful so far is just that we have the ability to pivot and we pivot quickly and we're able to kind of get to a point that is positive for us very quickly.
Right.
We're very streamlined. We're a small company, so we can make decisions and change things and change anything we want on today. It's not like we're a massive company.
So okay. So is there one or two? So is there like one thing that happens or one specific event that you can point to so far where it happened and you realized in that moment, this is actually a real thing. This is happening. This is actually working.
Yeah. It was. I can't remember exactly when, but what ended up happening was I was sitting in my office and I heard the comms from the game room, and I was just sitting here and I for the first couple month and a half it was kind of quiet. It was just me and maybe one or two other people and things like that, and then I heard this chatter and I was like, I like got this huge smile on my face and I heard these, 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids on their comms playing Overwatch, and it was positive and they were supporting each other and they were communicating and the coach was sitting there encouraging them. And it was this amazing moment when I was like, oh my God, this is what we were built to do. Like, this is that moment. And I literally, I stood outside of the door, like no one knew I was there, and I just listened. And I listened for probably like, half hour, 45 minutes, and I just sat there, like with a gigantic smile on my face, because, even if it didn't exist after that day, we proved that we were able to put it together and do it. And it was a really, really cool moment. I will never forget that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's those small moments in time, and when you have more of them and more of them, it's those little pieces that all that sort of all come together to make it all work, right?
Exactly.
All right. So I'm looking at your site, and so as far as events coming up, you have one especially that I'm interested in. You're partnering with Stevenson University, and so sort of talk about what it is, how it started, and your goals for it.
Sure. So the Game Gym and Stevenson University ended up coming together to put on an event called Ignite. And the reason we kind of were looking for a partner for this, our kids need competition experience. There are very, very few in real life competition experiences for kids in our community. There's a bunch of online opportunities and things like that. But I think that going somewhere, being uncomfortable, playing on a setup you're not comfortable with, or having to go and set up your mouse and keyboard for your specifications in a new place, all these things are a challenge. And what we're seeing now, especially with the expansion of the Overwatch League, some people are getting looked over because they don't have stage experience, because all they've done is played, in the comfort of their own home, and they're getting picked over for, people who have played in high stakes and stage and have that, live stage experience. And so, for us and the Game Gym, our kids needed a place to compete. Stevenson has this amazing program, and they were looking to promote their program. So it really seemed like a really a great match made in heaven that, we could be mutually beneficial for each other. And so, December 8th, we are going to host an Overwatch and League of Legends tournament. So you can enter in as an individual, as a group, or as a full team. We are going to put together as many teams as we can, and the goal is to go and compete. And you're going to be put on different teams in your life, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, whatever. You got to adapt. You got to figure out a way to be successful. And so Ignite is all about making ourselves uncomfortable, kind of getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and still competing to the best of our ability. And so, we realized that we wanted to have this. It was super important to Game Gym kids. And, we talked about it, and we were like, there's no reason why we shouldn't open it up to, the rest of the people in the area and see if anybody else would like to join us. So, this is as long as you are 18 and under, of amateur status and not in college, you are allowed to enter. And whether we get 10 people or 100 people, we're going to be doing this event. And then we're also going to be doing it in the spring. And then also we're going to be doing it next winter and next spring. And this is not a one-off.
Right.
This is, the Game Gym. And what we are doing is we are creating pillars that are going to sustain this program and are going to build the esports in our community at the local level. And it's really important for me for people to realize that this is not a one-off event. This is something that, we are going to start a fire with Ignite, and we are going to stoke it and keep it going and grow it over time.
See, and what you're doing serves several things. I don't think that parents fully understand what's out there for esports at the college level right now. I mean, there are
parents don't understand what esports are at any level.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that we discovered is that if you say esports to the general parent in our area, and I would say in most areas, unless you're in, maybe in a LA or whatever, but
yeah,
most people have zero idea what we're doing.
right.
Most people, might be flipping channel on TBS, and they might, go by the E-League, but they don't know or associate that is esports. Most people in our community, if you say esports to them, there's a gigantic blank.
Yeah.
And my hope is to replace that blank with the image of kids having a blast in a supervised and safe place.
Well, and when you explain it to parents and adults, the buy-in is so quick because they want their children to succeed. And you can say, look, your son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson can get a college scholarship to Stevenson if they can play Overwatch well. And 20 seconds later, you have a grandparent who's pulling out their, who reaches into their back pocket and is like, okay, I want my kid to have a good education. And what do you need? It's seriously that fast, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what people are seeing now, I think that the options, as we progress and as our country becomes a little bit less, aggressive towards technology, we will see a shift happen. And I think we're already starting to see it. In this area, if you have the opportunity to sign your kid up for esports and, they're going to get introduced to all these incredible tech jobs and, maybe get a great job in cybersecurity one day.
Right.
You have that option, or you sign your kid up for football. He gets CTE and no career.
Right.
Because essentially, traditional sports does a horrible job of preparing people for post-athletics. We're not going to make the same mistake at the game gym. So I make sure that our kids know about all the careers that a love of technology can lead them to. So everything from graphic design, game design, games need music. So you could be a music, game music developer. You can, games need salespeople, games need marketers, games need data and analytics people. There's games need people like you and me who, are either going to start a company or start a blog or start a, radio show. There's so many opportunities. So I think that what's going to happen, and you're already starting to see it, is that people are going to realize that not just is esports an opportunity to get the same benefits out of, sports that you do, like teamwork and communication and this and that, but it's also going to be coupled with this amazing opportunity to have a really great job in a new and advancing field versus traditional sports where essentially I graduated from college and I was a swimmer at 22, 23, and I had no clue what I was going to do.
Right.
And didn't really have any skills that really could apply to any place other than I was a good teammate or this or that, Right.
And I think it's been shown multiple times that students, youth and students who play esports are more likely to be students in the STEM fields. So not only do you have colleges that are starting these sports programs that are, one, inherently easy to start because they're so cheap, and two, there's a ready fan base that wants this. They're screaming for it. You won't, I mean, so if you go to college for 4 years and play Overwatch for Stevenson, you might come out perhaps with a sore wrist, but you're not going to have a concussion. You're not. Totally. I mean, it's extremely unlikely, I should say, that you're going to have a concussion from playing Overwatch or League of Legends for Stevenson University, because you're not running into people at full speed, and
Totally.
You're right, and esports as the next competitive platform, as the next entertainment platform, is it's merely the next step. It's not. It's funny because I always talk to kids. They're like, there's this new thing called esports. I'm like, no, it's really just we are finding a new way to entertain ourselves, and all of the pieces that go with it. You have the support staff, you have the marketing staff, you have the people who actually compete, you have the people who run the business side of everything, and just the fact that gaming in general can get people excited about going into business for themselves is tremendous because it supports the economy and it teaches the baseline skills that people need to have a family and have a job and be able to thrive in the world. And so I think what you're doing is really fantastic, really, really awesome.
I want to touch on something.
Sure.
It's interesting because we're sitting here and we're saying, well, you're not going to get CTE. Like, there is the other side, and esports has, and video games are addictive.
Yes.
Video games are a thing that, has been shown to, it affects your brain in certain ways. And I think that, while it's not, you're getting mashed in the face.
Right.
There are things that, special situations and issues that face esports competitors. And part of what we need to do, and what I'm really proud about at the Game Gym, is that we're not saying that video games are not addictive.
Okay.
We're saying they are addictive, and we're helping kids understand why.
Right.
It's tough because video games are built by people who are incredibly smart, groups of people, hundreds of people, 300, 400 very, very smart people, and their entire purpose of their whole goal and career is to build something that will keep you playing it.
Yes.
That is the entire point of building the game.
Yep.
Is that I'm going to build this thing so that from the moment you pick it up, you will not want to put it down.
Right.
That is the goal. And you have one side of things where you've got those people. Then you have the marketing side. So as soon as you drop out of the game, you have a dude like me sending you an email that says, hey, you dropped out of the game. Like, here's a free loot box if you come back. And,
right.
What is a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old supposed to do about that? Like, of course they're addicted because we've addicted them. This is literally the goal. If the kid is spending all his time and all of his money playing Fortnite, that's the goal. That is the goal of Fortnite. It's a game, but this is a business. And so we're treating our kids more like almost cattle sometimes in the gaming world than actually giving, caring about, their progress and things like that.
Right.
I think people game, and especially kids game way too long. I've been working on something, and we're going to be putting out some videos in the next little bit about why gaming less will make you a better gamer. Especially as a kid, because you don't have that kind of like old man brain strength yet.
Right.
And
exactly.
And kids are their brains are still young and all of that. And if you think of a bell curve, you warm up, you hit your peak, and then you start to decline. And what ends up happening with esports is that you do that bell curve, but then there's a really long tail to that bell curve because you keep on playing for 3-4 more hours. So you warm up, you hit your peak, you're doing great. Okay, now you're starting to get a little tired, you're starting to get a little fatigued, your brain is kind of fatiguing. And like in traditional sports, if you were running, eventually your body would shut down. Your legs would say like, I can't run anymore. Like, that's it. Like, we're done. And you'd sit down and you'd have to recover and whatever. Mm-hmm. But because this is all mental, what ends up happening is kids play for 2-3 more hours. And if you look at it, if you're imagining that bell curve with a really long tail, and that's a 3-hour span, you're actually spending 2 hours of that time on the tail end of that bell curve. And like, to me, that is the absolute worst time that you could be practicing. It'd be like running for an hour, hitting your peak, warming up, hitting your peak, like, struggling, your body's, breaking down, but then you run for 2 more hours on, tired legs and, horrible form and this and that. And what is happening right now is, in my opinion, kids are spending their practice time much more in that tail end, those 2 hours of negative space, than in that first hour. So if we were able to limit our gaming to an hour, hour and a half as a kid, what you do is you build up that time where you're playing at your best. So the idea of being a peak performer is you are able to perform at your best longer than other people. And what you need to do then is you elongate the top of that bell curve and you make it into a plateau. And so you don't do that by practicing, poorly. You don't do that by practicing in the tail end of that bell curve. You practice it, by being at your peak and trying to be there as long as possible. And then when you start to decline, you stop. And it's this, to me, I hope that made sense and
yeah.
You were able to understand that visual.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's universal. This is a universal thing. Like the bell curve, and maybe for you, it's 30 minutes and other people 45 and other people 2 hours, but the bell curve is universal. So I'm a big proponent of, we have to teach kids how to do this better, because what's happening is in that tail end of things, that's when you get angry because you're not able to do the thing you were able to do an hour ago.
Right.
That's when you rage because, the joy that you're getting out of the game, like your receptors have been, set off. So now they're not enough anymore. All these negative things that we associate with gaming and trash talking and this and that.
Right.
I think it has a lot to do with how much time we spend in that tail end of the bell curve. And, the more that we help people understand why they feel that way, the more that they have the knowledge to be able to combat it. And right now, nobody has the knowledge to combat it. The analogy that I keep using is it'd be like us trying to teach football to kids by giving them the football and then saying, good luck.
Right.
Like, we're not teaching them how to hit. We're not teaching them how to run plays. They're pretty much just figuring it out for themselves. And in that situation, some kids are going to be okay and make it out alive, and some kids aren't, and that's just not acceptable.
And I think that whole point that you're driving at speaks to us as humans. We have all these great ideas, and we want to develop new things and build new products and find new ways to entertain ourselves and to pass the time, not realizing what we're actually doing to ourselves. And just because you can do something, it doesn't mean that you should do something. And I think that if we shift our perspective and see the mind as just like any other muscle, that you can't go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. You have to train your mind, and just like you train your body, a 12-year-old's body is not the same as somebody who's 14, 18, 22, 35. It's a process, and I mean, you won't see it, I don't think, for several years because of the business aspect of gaming and how it works. But I think that you're going to have some sort of structure in place, and I think as esports moves into schools and into colleges and into high schools, you're going to see the same sort of restrictions that you see with football and baseball and soccer and softball. Is that okay? You can practice 4 hours a day. You can practice 3 hours a day. This is all you get because you're 14 years old. Your brain doesn't have the capacity yet to perform, like you said, at a high level for an extended period of time of 2, 3, 4 hours. So there are real opportunities here, and I'm seeing what you're doing. There's real opportunities here to teach people what the cognitive processes of our mind look like, starting off at 10, and when you get to 18, and then when you get to 26 further down the road. And I totally agree with everything that you're saying, and I would hope, and it's a very slim hope because of how we view technology. I hope that as this generation of kids turn into parents, that we move away from the Xbox as the babysitter. We get to a point where we get to the point of we don't stick them in front of the monitor and let them play for 4 hours, because it's you're right. It's completely addictive. The sounds, the lights, the gameplay. It's the same with social media. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. They're created, like you said. They want you to log on and never log off. They want you 24/7 to live on their platform. True. That's what they want. So. Oh, this is wow. We just spent a lot of time.
Well, it's crazy, I think that you're right, and it will take time. There's just part of it is just time. People are going to have, there's still a lot of outdated views, and until we have game gyms in every community in America, people will have the outdated idea of what esports are. If we could have a game gym in every strip mall in America, and parents and everybody can look by and see the fun that we're having, and that we're doing it in a good way, and that we're trying to teach these things a more positive way, and that it's supervised and this and that, then people's idea of what esports are changes.
Right.
And at the local level, there really isn't. Everybody is incredibly focused at the pro scene, and that makes sense because we didn't have youth basketball until we had pro basketball.
Right.
Grown men were playing basketball before we had kids playing basketball. So it makes sense. But we're a reactionary culture and country. And so these video games have come out, and at this point, we really haven't come up with an answer to how to teach our kids about video games.
Right.
And I see the game gym as a revolutionary way to educate your kids about video games, because what we're doing is we're teaching them the structure of how to manage this kind of stuff. But also, on the other hand, we're not a cure-all. We're not this immediate fix. You don't sign your kid up for a program and 2 days later, he's a completely different kid. This is about going through the season, through the process, through consistent reminders that, hey, you need to put the game down. Hey, go outside. Hey, do this, do that. It's a process. And I think that that's the other thing, is that people need to be able to give us the time, not just us and anybody else who's trying to make changes, give us the time to be able to work out the kinks and learn and develop those things better. I think that will be a big thing. And I make sure to tell all our parents who come through our program, look, this is a process. This is not a one-time you sign your kid up and everybody changes. This is a process, and through that process, just like, you sign your kid up for soccer or basketball, through that process, you hope that they, learn teamwork and sportsmanship and all these things. They don't learn those things immediately. And we're built in the same way.
Exactly. So, Josh, thank you so much for making time for me again. I always appreciate the people who come back and to me and tell me their stories of how they've grown since the last time we talked. So everybody, head over to thegamegym.com. Check out the Game Gym on Twitter as well. Josh, thank you very, very much for your time. Is there anything that you'd like to promote on the way out of this?
No, I please help us share our messages, join our conversation, on Twitter. Our handle is Game Gym Esports. On Instagram and Facebook, we are the Game Gym. Join our community, help us learn. If you have any suggestions or thoughts, on ways that we can make the program better, always happy to learn. And if you're doing something similar and you want either help or support, whatever, the rising tide raises all ships. So please give us a call. We're happy to help.
Exactly. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You're going to see some more of these awesome interviews. In the meantime, you can go over to thegamehaus.com. It isn't spelled House, so it's the Game Haus, spelled in the German way, Hause. Check out thegamehaus.com, and we'll see you soon.